We are now only a few days away from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend and the first sprint race weekend of the season. So today we're going to be previewing the circuit characteristics and how the circuit will be different from anything else F1 has raced on so far this season. Will the running order be any different? Well, we're going to be talking about that as well. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now let's get into the video. As I just mentioned, the Baku Circuit is nothing like what F1 has raced on so far this year, therefore we are entering into a world of unknown somewhat this weekend. The circuit comprises of some very long flat out straight sections in Sector 1 and Sector 3, similar in a way to what we've seen in Saudi Arabia. However, Sector 2 is a very tight section of circuit with a lot of stops and slower sections. In Sector 1 as well, there are corners that are all 90-degree corners, and this requires a lot from the rear tyres, as the drivers will need good traction on the exits, otherwise they can lose a lot of time by not being able to get the power down. It also requires a car with great downforce to be able to stop the cars, and who does this favour? Well, based on the previous races, this should really help the likes of Aston Martin, as they have been very good on their tyres so far this season. The technical sections and the 90-degree corners are going to punish cars that are not very good on their tyres, like the likes of Ferrari has shown so far this season, but for Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso, this should be good. Of course, Aston has straight line performance issues right now, but hopefully their low downforce configuration can help to mitigate some of those issues. However, they cannot go too low on the downforce, because if they do, then their advantage potential in Sector 2 will be washed away. Speaking of downforce configurations, this is also one of the first races where we are going to see probably some noticeable differences between the teams and maybe even the drivers themselves when it comes to downforce setup, as this image shows downforce packages in Baku can be drastically different. But why is this? The reason is simply down to the compromises that the teams are willing to make. The higher downforce setup is typically better for the teams when it comes to the race, as a higher downforce helps to reduce the car sliding around, which in turn helps the tyres to survive, as less sliding means less temperature in the tyres and also less moving around, which generally helps to reduce tyre wear. It also helps to make the car more stable on the brakes, which is useful given Baku has a lot of heavy braking zones, especially in Sector 1 and parts of Sector 2. The higher downforce does have a downside though, and that is higher downforce increases the amount of drag, and the increased drag leads to the car having a lower top speed, which is a big negative as they're giving up free lap time down the very long straights. Of course, in the race, slipstream and DRS can help to mitigate this issue a little bit, but in qualifying they are very likely to lose out on a bit of time. So what about the lower downforce setup? Well, typically teams that maybe are struggling with drag would opt to go for this setup configuration. The lower downforce will help the speed down the straight, but they are sacrificing potential performance when it comes to the braking zones and also the twisty sections of Sector 2. It also potentially leads to higher tyre wear as well, as this is down to the fact that the tyres are likely going to be sliding around a little bit more on the surface, which leads to increased temperatures and also of course more tyre wear in the rears. But in the races it could be useful because it means they can use that straight line performance to help defend from the cars behind, which may be using DRS, which we saw of course last year with the AlphaTauri against the Mercedes. We can also see how these differences can affect the cars, and we can see that by looking back at the data from the 2022 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Here we can see the fastest laps in qualifying between Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc scored pole position on this weekend, but look at the track dominance. The vast majority is actually dominated by Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. All of the straights is about Max Verstappen, but on the braking zones, Leclerc all of a sudden becomes the strongest car. Why is this? Well, as you can see, Max is having to slow down and brake earlier than Charles Leclerc is able to. With Leclerc being able to brake later and carry more speed into corners, he is able to make up all the time that he loses with Max Verstappen on the straights. This leads to Leclerc actually being the faster driver and the driver that is able to take pole position with a lap time of 1:41.359 and was on pole by 0.35 seconds from Max Verstappen. Now, it is hard to say what would have happened in the race because, well, Leclerc's power unit blew up just as the race was starting to get interesting. Last year, the teams had 3 practice sessions in order to decide the downforce package that they wanted to run. This gave them a great opportunity to try out different layouts on Friday before committing on Saturday. However, this year's Azerbaijan Grand Prix features a sprint race, which means qualifying is on a Friday and the teams only have one 60-minute practice session in order to decide upon which configuration will work best for them. If any team gets it wrong, then they will be in a lot of trouble this weekend. On top of this, Baku, at least based on last year's race, was the race which saw the highest amount of porpoising. With only one session to make sure that they can all get the ride heights correct, could we see a team maybe get it slightly wrong and have an uncomfortable car this weekend? Only time will tell, of course, but I do think it is an important factor going into this weekend's race, and I think the sprint race will actually make this race a lot more interesting because the teams do not have time to get the compromise fully figured out. It is not like a sprint race in Imola or the Red Bull Ring or Interlagos where the downforce package is similar for everyone. This is a race where there can be extreme differences, so they have to make sure they get it right first time around. So I suppose the question is then, who will this favour this weekend? One team that it could favour is Aston Martin. If we base it on last year, Ferrari was able to take pole position despite being slower in a straight line. Now, Aston's straight line speed deficit is much more apparent than Ferrari's was last year, but it can give some confidence that it is actually possible for them to perform and go quite well. Aston are planning on bringing a lower drag rear wing this weekend, at least that's what the rumours say. However, that could be a negative for Aston, as they do not have much time to test it out and determine if it is exactly what they want to run. If they do test it, I imagine they will run a back-to-back or something similar, where Fernando Alonso will have one layout and Lance Stroll will have the other configuration. Another team which might benefit from this weekend is the Alpine team. Alpine do have a very efficient car in a straight line and also have decent downforce. It is becoming fairly clear now that they are the runaway midfield team and are pretty much in a league of their own, provided they don't take each other out. They are faster than the likes of McLaren, Alfa Romeo, Haas, AlphaTauri and Williams. So for Alpine, they just need to make sure they don't take each other out and get a good qualifying session. If they do that, then there's no reason why they won't be easily the top midfield team and maybe, just maybe, fight one of the drivers from the top 4 teams. Ferrari could also benefit from this weekend. Ferrari are yet to have a fully clean weekend. Bahrain was a great start and Leclerc would have finished P3, but obviously his power unit said otherwise. In Saudi Arabia, he would have started in P2 if not for a power unit penalty, and in Australia, Sainz was one of the fastest drivers overall, but ended with 0 points, and obviously Leclerc got involved in an incident. With 2 races in Baku, it is vital that Leclerc keeps it clean and does not get involved in a silly incident. I really do think this is a good opportunity for Ferrari to finally score some much needed points and actually move themselves up the constructors' standings, because I don't think they are the 4th fastest car overall. Finally, of course, Red Bull. Red Bull, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez can probably turn up and do whatever they want and they will still be in a fairly strong position. However, that being said, Red Bull have struggled in previous sprint weekends. In Austria, they struggled with tyre wear, and in Brazil, they were slower than the Mercedes. This could mean then that this is the best opportunity so far this year for their rival teams, Ferrari, Mercedes and Aston Martin, to capitalise on the Red Bulls. And who knows, this could be the first time this year that Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, Fernando Alonso, Charles Leclerc or Carlos Sainz could actually beat Max Verstappen. The question is though, what do you guys think? Are you excited for this weekend's sprint race? If so, let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, comment, leave a like, and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.